Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to talk about Superman 2025. Everybody is scrambling to watch this movie in a theater somewhere, so that way they can turn around and review it, it seems. So this will just end up being like, hey, I saw this, so I'm talking about it. So, right out of the gate, I'm going to tell you quickly that this movie was good. I actually really did like it, surprisingly. I am to go on and obviously state that I feel that Man of Steel is a better film, but I liked this movie. There's some good things about it, and there is some negative side about it, and I'll kind of wait that till kind of the tail end here. So, because obviously we have certain names of certain things that I'm gonna have to forcibly continue to say throughout this film that are to be just like, God dang it! Like, why do they have these goofy names for these certain things? Like Barovia or the other country that seems to be like battling and whatever in this film. And I'm just like, really? We're doing that in this movie? But so back with the positive. So Mr. Terrific is actually freaking terrific for once. God dang it. Like, I would go on and watch him in Justice League Unlimited, and I'm like, he's just a guy in the watchtower. This guy sucks. Why is he terrific? F that noise. Like, I watched him in Arrow, and I'm like, nah, like, very vanilla to me. I don't really care for this character. But then actually, when seeing him in this film, like, yeah, like, a lot of times he's probably just a guy in a chair, but like, he does go on and have this sequence where he's like just kind of just decking all these people, and I'm like, ooh, wow, all right, cool. As Lois is just kind of in this bubble, just like, huh? So, uh, I really liked Guy Gardner in this movie, with his whole Justice Gang thing. Uh, Hawk Girl has her own like Batman Begins moment. If you guys remember, like the very tail end of that movie, where Christian Bale's character turns to Liam Neeson, is like, "I don't have to save you either." Like, we really have that kind of going on with Hawk Girl in this movie. I'm like, yeah, you get him, Hot Girl. uh, and so uh, this movie was to go on and be quite a bit of fun. I enjoyed it, and also now let's talk about the negatives. Let's get that out. So I can go on and state that I realize that this movie is going to be merchandised to all heaven, uh, with what it's going to go on and try to push out there. I was even surprised that Joey was going to be a merchandisable thing. And I'm like, yeah, Joey, yeah. Joey is the freaking best thing about this film, hands down. And a lot of people are like, dude, what are you smoking? I'm like, no, Joey is the best thing. Me and him share a same name together, so he's the best thing. I don't care what people say. Like, that fugly thing, no, he's best. He's bestest ever. Um, yeah, like if he's not, I don't care. Um, I could just make that a joke that I just ironically just like that character, just because we share the same name. It's a nickname for me, but still, like, we share the same name technically. Uh, the worst thing that I kind of started to get annoyed with was Crypto. They smother the crap out of this dog being used in this movie, and I'm like, I get it. This is going to be the mascot of this film. I get it that you're wanting to push this agenda of this dog character, and I get that, like, well, yeah, like, it's to appeal to dog lovers. This movie should appeal to superhero lovers, to Superman lovers. Like, it shouldn't appeal to the dog audience. That just seems very weird to me that they're um, trying to narrowly get that audience to just be like, oh, great. That seems kind of weird to me. Uh, but then also, Metamorpho, the way he was used in this movie, felt very deflating to me. I was so happy that Metamorpho was going to be in a live action film. Just be like, seriously, that's what they do with him in this movie? Yeah, all right. Well, I guess we can't all win at everything in life when it comes down to a film. Uh, but also, Ultraman. I don't think that that's a huge spoiler. Some people won't even know who this character is when they watch this movie. Ultraman was kind of a disappointment to me. In the fact of the matter of it is that they go about like the Superman 4 treatment with this character instead of him actually being from where they could have obviously gone to have him come from within this movie. Because if Lex is going on and doing some pocket something or others, let's just say, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, to those of you that have seen this movie, why couldn't he have found a certain Ultraman in a pocket somewhere? God, that was the one thing that I was just like, really? Like, you, what? That was the one um, part of this movie where I was just like, you're kind of retconning the way that this guy is to have been ever been done in the DC universe, and everybody was going on and stating that they were going to have Bizarro in this movie. There's no Bizarro. There's no one. There's no Bizarro whatsoever. But anyways, so but there is to seemingly be some Kryptonians in this film, one way or the other. Whether they are to be uh, seemingly kind of presented in the Fortress of Solitude in some ways, or are to go on and be presented as a cameo, let's just say. Uh, Also, there was to be a character that I'm like, oh, I get now why uh, certain characters have a cameo in a certain show that's on HBO Max. All right, okay, cool. Uh, I'm trying to not spoil this movie, but I have to go on and be like, yeah, that was cool. But so Superman uh, was fun. I like the comic book style of this movie, and so I think it's about that time to just break down this film and go into the full uh, bit of it all. This movie is to go on and remind me of like Superman Returns, and it reminds me of the Black Adam Dwayne the Rock Johnson movie, and as if there's other ones that Black Adam had gone on and done. Yeah. Um, and I know, weirdly enough, that those are probably to a lot of people probably two bad films. But that's what I feel like this movie had me be reminded of, as well as also like the previous other Superman films. Like it's all just kind of crammed into one movie. Like a number of all these films just kind of smashed together, as well as also like this movie tries to accomplish a lot of stuff within its X number of hour marker, and you could applaud this movie for accomplishing all this, or also just say that it's like, man, this is freaking exhausting. Uh, but I think that this movie was actually to like once you get down to where like Superman talks about like, well, hey, I need to go on and I need to get my dog. Like that's when the movie starts to really slow down. Once we get to like the Metamorpho stuff, and like it's like, okay, man, like is this movie ever gonna catch back up? Like it's really slowing down here, and that was still probably be the only just kind of downside. But like there's quite a bit of fun with this movie. I liked it. So yeah, so I can say negative, but thumbs up, everybody. Thumbs up. Yeah. I'm happy that I can go on and be like, yeah, I liked this film because not everyone did. A lot of people can go on and hate this movie and be like, it's the worst superhero film I've ever seen. How could dare they could have gone on and I can understand that. I can understand being negative about a film because I have been negative about a lot of films. I have not been easily won over by a lot of movies. So if I'm to probably say that this movie is good, you're to probably go into the theater and be like, oh my god, this is the best Superman movie I've ever seen in my life. And it's like, what was he thinking? I'm like, yeah, what was I thinking? But if anything, if you're thinking about going on and seeing this movie, but you're like, I don't know if I should go on and see it in theaters or not, you can go on to an app called Zeliphonic, Zelivomanic, and see Superman for absolutely free, because that's the avenue of which that I went on about seeing this movie. Because logically, I was like, well, I'm going to go on and see it again on Tuesday, but I wanted to just kind of see this movie as quickly as possible, because I know I wanted to just try to prevent as all cost to end up getting spoiled by anybody about this film, because that don't ends up being forced down your throat to happen. But I don't think there was anything about this movie that felt like a huge, massive spoiler that you were to try to avoid in this movie. I feel like everything that they presented in the trailer was everything that you kind of saw in this movie for the most point. There wasn't any big, with the exclusion of maybe a cameo, wink, wink, not judge, here or there in this film, because there's more than one. But none of those are just be like, cameos, because I feel like they've kind of told you what's kind of going on in this film through the dirt sheets and whatever. So unless you probably haven't heard about any of those things, or maybe you've avoided the trailers like I tried to tend to do. But anyways, so with that said, Mr. Terrific was actually terrific in this film. Gary Gardner was great. Uh, Superman, like when looking at Henry Cavill and looking at this guy, it's uh, like either or is fine for me. Like I don't think that Henry Cavill is a better Superman than this guy. I would just go on and say that maybe the way that they wrote Henry Cavill's Man of Steel story was just similar, if not the same. Especially once we get to the battle sequences toward the third act, like that kind of felt very same because you could only have Superman battles uh, have so much done within them that's very hard to get creative with Superman battles anymore in an animated or live action thing. Uh, for those of you that may not go on and to have watched much of like Superman animated stuff, and I can probably recommend some people certain things. Superman versus the Elite is actually a movie, or Superman versus the Elite. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. That actually is a really entertaining film if you've never gone and seen that film. It goes on and has Superman against a team of characters that are kind of fairly unknown characters, but that story I feel is very good, and would recommend people going on and checking that out. It seems that Reign of Superman, it seems to be that is to be an animated movie that seems to be fairly popular to a lot of people. The Red Sun Superman story seems to be very popular, and the animated movie seems would be a thing for people to go on and check out. I probably should have actually gone on and checked out a number of these kind of just Superman animated things before going into this film, but I haven't really been on here lately because I've been going on and doing a lot of research on comic book stuff. Because I wanted to go on and put together a ragtag team of a Justice League or an Avengers team, and that's kind of where my research had been going lately, with just kind of putting these teams together and kind of checking up on just kind of comic book characters, and then the slippery slope of that was just like taking way too much effing time to do that and not be on here, and obviously there's quite a bit of stuff that I probably should be catching up on because I just found a number of things today that I'm like, oh, this dropped. Oh, this dropped. All today, this dropped. Oh, crap. I need to watch this. And I had also not yet quite seen the last season of Squid Games. I haven't seen that yet, so I should probably push myself to watch that. So I could probably have something to review also on here because I'm sure people will probably go and be like, yeah, you're kind of late to the game on that one. But, oh well. Still talk about it. Might as well. But anyways, let's go on and let's get into the actual spoiler part of this thing because I've already been talking for roughly 60 minutes. When it honestly comes down to the full-on spoiler part of this, I had gone on early in this morning as soon as I woke up, filmed a 2-hour video, so 2-hour and change video. So uh, today I'm just like, man, I've watched a 2-hour film and then I'm going on and doing this review. I'm going to try as much as possible to just kind of have some kind of reserve of some kind of energy for the rest of my day because I would like to breathe and I would like to be able to function until I fall asleep this day. So yeah, so let's go on and let's try to do this review, but try to do like this as quickly as possible and cliff notingly as possible. So I think it's about that time yet again to, of course, go on into spoiler time. So I had honestly gone on and to say that I think I'm decently good at knowing Superman characters, but like there's certain people that end up kind of getting put into this film where I'm just like, okay, who is Eve or who is Otis or who is Sydney or who is um, Michael Rosenbaum in this movie? Who the heck is that? When does he appear in this film? Because he was, of course, in this movie. For those of you that are Smallville fans, Lex Luthor Rosenbaum is within this film because I looked at it in IMDb, and sure enough, he's in this movie somewhere. And more than likely, I will probably hope to spot him in this film. But like, if I watch it again, like, where was he in the movie? I'm not sure. But so, yeah. So let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this movie. And like I said, I hope to go on and see this movie probably on Tuesday. But who knows? Like my sleep schedule, I don't know. But luckily, I was able to watch it today. So regardless, uh, goal achieved. So spoilers, everybody. Get your uh, uh, Superman T-shirts out because you're a Superman fan, I guess. If you're watching this, so stop everything you're doing, whip out that Superman T-shirt, throw it on, and realize that you're just like, why am I throwing this shirt on? It doesn't make sense. And I was just like, yeah, it doesn't. Why did you do that? So, anyways, let's talk about the very beginning of this film. So, the very beginning of this movie is to showcase that there is something going on before Superman is to crash land into the Arctic and desperately be crying out in whistle form to try and get Crypto to drag him to the Fortress of Solitude. It goes on, it states that Superman was in the midst of some battle and against the hammer of uh, Borovia. Yeah, I love these names. I can't wait to the other country that is facing off against Borovia. Sounds great. So I know it starts with a J. It's like Jarhan. Did I say it right? No. Well, that's too bad. So Superman is going on to whistle to Crypto, and Crypto is to drag Superman to the fortress. And the fortress opens up. I'm like, man, this is pretty sweet. I liked the way that the Fortress Solitude looked, and had that big, massive door of a thing. And so we obviously have mostly like four talking here, but it seems that we also have other talking parts of all these other robots. But it seems that Gary or Four is doing most of the heavy lifting here as far as dialogue is concerned. So these robots grab Superman and bring him to this chair. And Superman, it seems, in this movie has to heavily rely on like the sunlight more than I think he's ever had. And in my mind, I was just thinking, like, why not just make him a solar suit? We've obviously had in the past where, like, Young Justice would have Superboy, like, when you see him the very first time, he's in this solar suit, and, like, why not have him in that forever? Why wouldn't that make the most sense? But so we have Superman that just sits in this chair as the robots are to diagnose him as 14 fractures. And having him sit in this chair to just have this Fortress of Solitude open up to have Superman be hit by the sun. Here's my just issue. Why wouldn't Superman just fly off into space to where he can get closer to the sun? But maybe again, like Superman is just not that powerful this day to be able to fly into space to get closer to the sun. Uh, but that's just me here, just being nitpicky. But so while this is going on, Forrest is set up that Superman needs to hear both his mother and father speak, his biological parents from Krypton, both Jor-El and Laura. And so the dialogue is to go on to be in English, and then it switches to some other language because it seems that the transition of Kal-El making his way to Earth had this last message that his parents was to try to send him, just kind of lost in translation. And it seems that Superman was to never have gone on to get this thing fixed, and eventually he will go on to regret this decision. Because, yeah, once we find out what the actual translation is in this movie, we're like, man, Kal-El, your parents suck. But oh well, I guess, I guess that's just egg on your face, right, Superman? Superman should be setting up some harems and setting up some women. Like, man, he just needs to bet all those. That was some bullshit. Come on, really? So we have Superman getting a tan here, and as Superman is to just kind of just lob out of the chair, Four tells Superman, it's like, well, hey, you're only at 84%, and Superman's just like, well, like that's good enough. Back to the fray. While this is going on, we have the engineer character that is to be working with Lex Luthor, and this engineer character reminds me of like Mercy from the comic books because when looking at Mercy and like Smallville, not the same really character, but Mercy in the comic books was kind of more of an android or robot or whatever, and the engineer has this kind of nanite-like power, which I thought was kind of really interesting for this film, and also could just kind of make her kind of do anything uh, that the story actually needed here. So the engineer was to follow Superman and try to figure out where he hangs his cape, so to speak. And so the engineer is to figure out where the Fortress of Solitude is, but by the time that she gets there, the Fortress of Solitude just kind of goes back into its hiding hole, so to speak, as Superman is to try to make his way back into flying to face off against the hammer of Boravia, whatever that goofy metal guy looking was, and then we come to find out that the hammer of Boravia is to not legitimately end up actually being who he actually is supposed to be, anyways. We find out that that whole thing is just a ruse, and it's actually just to be Ultraman, anyways. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, why couldn't it have just have been uh, Ultraman? But I get it. Like, it just needed to be the Hammer of Boravia, just so that way they can have this kind of international crisis of kind. But so as Superman is to face off against the Hammer of Boravia, we find Lex and his team of geeks uh, in Luthor Corp going on and guiding this hammer through all of these weapons. And we're going on and we're finding out that like Lex has been studying Superman for years and knows exactly how to go on and counter every bit of thing that Superman is to deliver, because of how it seems that Superman is to just kind of be this open book, and Lex knows him so well. So they go on and they're calling out all of these counters, 12C, 18A, so on and so forth. So the hammer ends up decking Superman to where he crashes through this ground. And so one of these civilians is like, oh, hey, yeah, Superman's on the ground. Like, let's rush over there and let's try to help him up. Because he's gone on and he's, like, protected us so many times. So maybe we should try to protect him and just be like, hey, man, like, let's lift him up. Let's help him out here. So we, of course, have, as this guy is lifting Superman up here, here is, of course, where like Superman is like telling this guy, it's like, hey man, like you definitely should not go on, and you should be helping me out here because you're in danger. But like the guy's like, no, 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 I'll help you out. You've helped us out so many times in the past. So Lex is kind of looking at Superman kind of being defeated here. Kind of defeated here as kind of a win. So he's like, all right, like let's celebrate. So the Hammer Baravia makes his way to this tentative location that we will eventually come to find. This is to be a part of this weird Power Watch association that Lex is kind of putting together. And so the Hammer of Baravia makes his way to this one-dimensional portal to then make his way to Luthor Corp. And then the hammer is to open up its helmet piece, and we find out that it's actually Ultraman. So Lex is to go on and have a girlfriend in this story, and her name is Eve. And come to find out, this character will be more than just a person that just consistently just takes selfies all the goddamn time. And so now we transition from Superman scenes to now Clark Kent. So Clark Kent is going on and making his way into the Daily Planet here. I almost was tempted to say Daily Bugle, uh, but Daily Planet. We obviously see Daily Planet by the fact that this newspaper is to go on and talk about the Hammer of Baravia creates havoc downtown. So Clark makes his way into the planet. And he's going on and like, hey, guy here, hey, girl there, hey, yada yada yada. So while that's going on, we have both Martha and Pa Kent that are calling uh, Clark and congratulating him. And Jonathan is telling uh, Clark, hey, don't be a stranger. But probably when you're going to come to us, you're probably going to be injured. Because I'm sure you will. So, at the Daily Planet, we of course go on to find out that Clark Kent is interviewing himself, oddly enough. But like I guess, hey, that is a smart way to kind of get the exclusive. But also, that kind of is a dumb move. That is a dumb tactic because if you think about it, like anybody could probably draw the conclusion that it's like, well, hey, how is it that this Clark Kent guy gets all these exclusive stories? Because he's Superman, because Clark Kent is Superman. And oddly enough, they go on and explain in this story that Clark Kent is wearing these hypno glasses so that way people won't think that he's Superman. But then Guy Gardner brings up to Lois in this movie, it's like, well, hey, you know that he has hypnotic glasses, and that's why that no one can think that Clark Kent is Superman. And but then Guy Gardner goes on and reveals to Lois Lane that Clark Kent is Superman, and then Lois looks at Guy Gardner. It's like, man, like, why does Clark trust you people? Like, you're dumb. So, but anyways, Lois and Clark here, they're having a bit of dialogue where Lois is busting Clark's chops, and later on we'll come to find that Clark is a turn to Lois of like, well, hey, yeah, like that 1-2 punch that you kind of gave me in the planet, like, yeah, that was a good ruse. And Lois is like, no, like, was it? So, uh, so we go on here to watch in the telly that the leader of Barovia is to seemingly be going on and be on the telly making a speech here. And we then transition to have Lex talking to the Pentagon. And Lex is trying to go on and try to raise suspicions that he should be ordered to be able to take down Superman. And Lex also goes on and is to explain to these Pentagon officials that he has characters like the Engineer and the Ultraman that are to be possibly an incredible threat to Superman uh, if there is to be a reasoning for wanting to take Supes down here. So the more and more that Lex is trying to convince these guys to like, well, hey, I have the manpower, I have also the Raptors, like I have all these things, like Just give me the green light. And we have characters like uh, uh, Flag Senior and uh, where is the other guy here? Um, General Maury here that are to go on and be like, well, no, like if anything, because of Superman's popularity, like we can't have you go on and we can't have you take him out. Like we can't justify you going on uh, and going after Superman, even though he could go on and be an actual incredible threat here. So we then are to, of course, have uh, Clark Kent make his way to his place to find Lois there. And, or no, I got that wrong. Lois, let me get that right. Lois makes her way into this place to find Clark Kent already going on and making some food in there. Like at first, Lois goes in there and she thinks that there might be an intruder of some kind, but then she finds out that it's Clark, and she's like, "Oh, okay, all right." So Clark is to mention to Lois how, like, hey, it was a good 1-2-1-2 that you kind of gave me at the office there. Like, no one knows that we're dating, and uh, they go to one another, they kiss, they embrace. So Lois is to go on and tell Clark here that he really should not go on and be interviewing himself anymore. It doesn't make sense because a lot of people raise suspicions that he is to be Superman the more and more he interviews himself. And so eventually Clark gives in. It's like, well, okay, well, how about you interview me then? And Lois is like, okay, all right. So the further and further we go on into this interview here, it goes on and reminds me of the very first Superman film. But this time around, we're not going on and talking about panties here, or we're not just talking about Superman or origins, even though we technically get into that part a little bit here. And of course, if you don't know the panties thing, like Lois was wearing in the first movie, pink panties. Uh, anyways, so so within this interview, Lois starts grilling Clark about like, well, hey, like you went into Barovia soil, and like, did you not go on and go to anybody that worked as an American official and see if that was okay? And Clark was like, no. And Lois was like, well, why didn't you? And like, I'm hugely paraphrasing here. Clark eventually is to go on and state that the reason why he acted the way he did was because there was a number of people that were all dying. And the more and more that he starts to talk about the regime of which that were going on and possibly killing people, and Lois is like, well, that's all kind of speculative. Like, there's no real hard evidence that states any of that. And so the more and more that Clark starts to talk about this whole political kind of chain of command kind of thing going on here, the more frustrated it seems that Clark starts to get. And then Lois Lane also starts to get into the social media side of Superman about how Superman is to try and avoid looking at social media because there's obviously to be praises to be had with this character, but then there's also a very much negative side of this character where Superman is to be called super shit or a number of other things. Because we really just have to just say that word just a bunch of times throughout this film. But so, eventually, the further and further this bit of dialogue goes on, uh, the two of them just start to almost lash out at one another. And at one point, we have Lois that is realized, like, I knew this wasn't going to work. And eventually, later on in the film, Clark turns to Lois and ends up asking, well, what did you mean about, like, you didn't think that this wasn't going to work? And Lois is like, I don't know. And eventually she goes on and talks about how, like, the two of them are kind of polar opposites, how, like, she questions everything and he trusts everything. And eventually I'll probably get into that dialogue and eventually kind of swerve away from that because I've already talked about it here. But so, uh, we then, after all of this, transition to both the engineer, Ultraman, and Lex, as well as Eve, is to always go on and do her selfies because that's her. Uh, these characters are making their way to where the Fortress of Solitude supposedly was, and we would assume that Lex is not going to gain entry into the Fortress of Solitude, but we'd probably, excuse me, realize otherwise because uh, the reason why Lex had been able to gain entry into the Forces of Solitude is because he has Clark Kent's DNA, and he has Clark Kent's DNA from, of course, a actual thing called Ultraman. But Ultraman had become a thing because he had gotten cloned, and so I'm like, this is the clone saga all over again. This is Ultraman is basically Ben Riley here. Longer hair, like this is a bizarre like clone saga that we can all accept. But in my mind, I'm like, this is basically Superman 4. And also, uh, like if you're gonna have pocket dimensions within this movie, why not go on and have Ultraman have come from one of those pocket dimensions? But whatever, I digress. So that's kind of where I'm kind of just upset about this character being used. But anyways, the Fortress of Solitude opens, and the robots are to be caught off guard because I guess there's no defensive measures in the Fortress of Solitude because Superman never assumes there should have to need to ever be that happening. Bizarrely, so the robots are of course to be caught off guard, and the engineer and Ultraman murder all of the robots. Sadly enough, I'm like, oh dang man, you murder all the robots, well, except kind of four still kind of lives and thrives here. But so uh, also Crypto is in the Fortress of Solitude, and they end up kind of muzzling that dog, and they end up taking him. Sadly enough, yeah. The one time that I was like felt bad for Crypto, but then I was like, well, we're gonna see him in like a third of this film anyways, if not almost all of it. So, I can just have a wide range of emotions about this character. So Lex goes on to have the engineer kind of use her nanotech to fuse into Clark's computer to rip out that message that, of course, his parents had sent him, his biological parents, because Lex is to go on and say to the engineer that we need some kind of evidence that we can kind of get dirt on Superman, so like we can go on and try as best we can to have the government try and uh, say that like this guy, he needs to get killed. So the engineer is turning to Lex like, well, hey, what if Superman shows up to the fortress? And Lex is like, well, like I have something to deal with that. So we have Sydney and we have Otis. They are at this van, and the two of them end up opening this van, and there seems to be this unusual metal box that seems to be opened here, and this baby kaiju ends up coming out of it. And we have Sydney that turns to, of course, Otis, and is like, well, hey, that seems to be kind of a small distraction. And Otis turns to Sydney. It's like, well, it's going to get a bit bigger at some point. It's going to get a lot bigger. So, uh, cue the next thing we go on and we actually see here is this big, huge, massive monster of a thing. And underneath the foot of it is to be Superman trying to go on and save a dog from being crushed. Because here's the thing, Superman goes on and he tries to save everybody. And I mean everybody. He tries to save squirrels, he tries to save dogs. It's freaking hilarious at some points. The depths that Superman tries to go on and save all these animals and all these things. And I just find that to just be just like that really gives this character some uniqueness, but also I'm just like that just looks goofy. Like he's seriously saving a dog and a squirrel and a this and a that, but like I guess for probably Superman we have to realize that for this character that all life is precious. So cool. Like that ends up giving like again animal lovers in PETA and what like yeah, like a lot of people can go on like, oh he saved a dog, he saved a squirrel, he saved oh how cute. Um so Superman is trying to get this dog to go away so he can protect him. So what he ends up doing is he ends up using his like freeze breath and like puts ice underneath the dog so the dog kind of just shuffles away. So after he does that, Superman goes under the ground, and this I guess is to remind us of the very first Superman movie where Superman tries to figure out where Lex is, and he kind of burrows under the ground and eventually goes on to find Lex, and then he goes through that weird, goofy obstacle course that Lex tries to put him through, and Superman just kind of passes through all of that stuff to get to Lex. When he freezes him and tries to shoot him with bullets and all kinds of things. Like you would have thought that all of that stuff Lex would have probably figured out. That yeah, you can't shoot Superman. It's not going to work out. So, but back to the film here. So, Superman burrows his way out of course, what is to be uh, this hole he had gone under, and he is going on and facing off against this big, huge, monstrous kaiju, and he goes on to punch it, and this has this kaiju kind of go flying. And before this kaiju actually hits this building, Superman is to go on and lift this kaiju, just kind of to just push it away from the building so it doesn't land. And then Superman continues to attack it, like goes on to uh have news coverage and people are watching this. This kaiju goes on and he bursts a flame into this building and at Superman. And Superman turns to these people and he's like, well, hey, are all you guys all right? And they're like, yeah, I guess we're fine. And so Superman's like, okay, hey kaiju, eyes up here, like you should be paying attention to me. So Superman goes on to boop the kaiju in the nose, and at one point, there's to be a woman that is trying to run away from this monster, and Superman is to grab her and is to just fly her out of there because it's like, hey, like she's gonna get crushed, so we might as well save her. So 30 some odd minutes in, we now get Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, and Hawk Girl. So Guy Gardner goes into doing one of his lantern conjurations to have this megaphone go on and tell everybody just kind of get the f out of there. So while that's going on, we have Grant who's talking to Lois Lane, and they're kind of babbling on about what they're babbling on about, and Lois Lane is kind of watching the television, and we see um, Reeves' son, like the guy who had gone on to originally been in the Superman films. He had a son, and I had seen interviews of him talking about his father, and it was really cool to kind of see him on the screen here, just kind of doing this reporting. I'm like, cool, like it's really nice that he was able to go on it and be a part of this film in some capacity. So now that we have the Justice Gang coming in, and they're trying to rein in this kaiju monster. We have at one point where Superman grabs this water tower and he swings it against this kaiju and kind of puts him through a loop. Guy Gardner is trying to go on and is trying to use these Green Lantern conjuration things, and or constructs is what I should probably actually say that they are, because that's what they're called, constructs. And so the first thing is to be this kind of metal muzzle thing, and then eventually, while Guy is trying to get control of this because he needs to just consistently have this control, or the the construct breaks. Uh, Mr. Terrific is going on and talking to Superman and trying to figure out what is going on here. Uh, and Superman is going on to talk about like how they should try to like not try to kill the thing. If anything, they should try to like take it somewhere safe so they can study it. And it's just like, really? So Guy Gardner is going on and putting oven mitts on this kaiju's hands, all while Hawkgirl is trying to attack this thing in the eye, to try to poke it in the eye, because that's their tactic, is to just try and make these constructs, or to just try to poke it in the eye consistently. That's their game plan. Hawkgirl ends up getting very upset with Guy Gardner. Uh, And while that's going on, Superman is trying to save a girl from these. Like we've seen this in the trailer. It's like the big thing that they keep throwing at us as far as this Superman movie visual of these kind of balloon tanks, and they're going flying at Superman as he saves this girl. So we have Mr. Terrific that goes on to send these bots within the kaiju's stomach, and Superman goes in with his X-ray vision to see this kaiju's stomach, as we realize that uh, it's either its heart or it's his stomach. I'm not quite sure. It's some organ of this body, and he notices through his X-ray vision, Superman does, that Mr. Terrific is to have this body organ of the kaiju explode, and then the kaiju falls over, and Superman tries to hold the kaiju to let it fall to where it doesn't hurt anything. So again, this is all while Lois Lane is again blah 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 chatting with Grant here. And I honestly get what they're doing with Grant. She used to probably be kind of like the sex appeal of this movie, oddly enough. Um, because I guess you gotta try to appeal to a certain kind of things in this movie. So Superman ends up talking to Guy Gardner as Superman is kind of just squeezing his way from underneath this kaiju, and Superman is kind of upset because he wished that they didn't have to go on and kill this monster, and Guy just looks at Superman and is like, "Well, yeah, you're a bit of a wuss, whatever." Like, so, uh, so Guy walks off, and he has to see this crowd here, and he's hoping that everyone is going to go on and like clap for him and hug him and embrace him as this hero. And Guy is going on and thinking that he can just go on and just say the words, "Hey, like this attack is brought to you by Lord Tech," because of course Maxwell Lord is a thing in this movie. And if you guys don't know who Maxwell Lord is, you would have to go on and see Wonder Woman 84 or whatever that goofy sequel to the Wonder Woman movie was, which that movie is not that good. But Maxwell is Pedro Pascal in this movie, within that Wonder Woman film. In this movie, he's Gunn. Or in this, well, I don't really see him in this movie all that much. But I think he's probably gonna be more in the Peacemaker show, because we've seen the trailer of that at least. So as Guy is to go on and like realize that no one is really paying any attention to them, and they should. He's like, why aren't they clapping? The breaking news is to come across, and everyone's paying attention to it. That it seems uh, that Superman's parents is to have their bit of dialogue be translated, and come to find out that uh, the parents had wanted Clark to bed so many women and have so many harems, and to reign over this planet, and this and that. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, Superman's folks are wanting Clark to just dominate over this planet? Like, what the fuck? Like, what is this nonsense? Like, what the is this? Like, I guess, like, we have to realize that there is no, I guess, redeeming thing about Krypton, I guess, right? Like, that kind of sucked. So we find out that Superman's folks, like, I'm like, what the is this? What the fuck? like, but also, like, it's a secret of this film that, yeah, like, and also when looking at it, uh, like eventually in the later animated stuff that deals with Batman, we find out that Thomas Wayne was to kind of be more shady than we thought he was. That Thomas Wayne had worked with Falcone and had been, of course, a doctor and kind of done some surgeries and stuff like that to just kind of help Falcone out at some points. And so it seemed that Thomas Wayne was a part of that business and kind of was doing some shady things. And so we're starting to go on and consistently find that all of these people that we thought we knew, yeah, not so much. There's some underhanded people going on here. I'm like, man, what a slap in the face of Jarrell, and who's played by Bradley Cooper, and also Laura, who's being played by an actress. I don't know who she is played by, sadly enough. Um, but anyways, so Superman is to go on and possibly think that Lex or whoever had gone on to find out about this and is to state that everything that his parents are supposedly saying here is a big fat lie. And so Lex is even going on uh, this talk show and is talking to Michael Ian Black, who I know he's a good stand-up comedian. I watched him in uh, the show Stella. He was on Reaper at one point. But in this movie, he's actually called Clevis. Clevis Thornwalter. I'll just go with Clevis here. So, uh, Lex here is to go on and throw some shade to Superman's way, and that is to, of course, go on and have Lex state that, like, well, how many harems has Superman have already? So Superman makes his way to this place to get away from everybody as they're throwing cans and all kinds of assortment of items at him. Because, like, some people are just shocked at the news and they're all looking at Superman just mortified. Ah, like, the guy that we thought we loved. How dare he have secret harems? So, Guy, Terrific, and Hawk Girl see Superman here and they want to talk to him and they want to try to understand if he's been hiding this secret all along, to really look at him and know that he's telling the truth. So, Guy, here's a cool thing. So, Guy ends up seeing all these people looking within these windows, and so he makes a construct to block people seeing them in here so they can have a bit of time to talk here. So Guy ends up chiming in here to ask Superman of, like, well, hey, uh hey, like, you were the guy that the Green Lantern Corps uh sent me here to prevent, and this and that, and like, and if any of that stuff is true, then, like, then we have a problem here, kind of thing. And, like, I'm hugely paraphrasing here, but so uh like, Clark goes on and states to Terrific and Hot Girl and Guy here that, like, there's no way that that message is true. Like, there has to be some kind of fake message that somebody tried to do here. And Terrific states to Clark, it's like, there's no way that that message is to be a fake. Like, that message, like, I can go on and have people scrub it and they'll probably tell you that it's not a fake message, that everything they said there was the absolute truth, and the message is legit. Clark looks at Terrific just mortified and be like, well, like, so Superman flies off. So the next thing, of course, we see here is Flag Senior. He, of course, is getting together with Luthor, and they're having to make a decision here. So so General Mori is to state to Lex here that they realize that now that this stuff has come across and there seems to be some kind of evidence that Superman does have some dirt on him, that Mori is to say that Superman is to be a danger and we have to act now. On the news, uh, people are watching on the Daily Planet with people having their own perspective about how they feel about Superman, as well as also the leader of Barovia is going on and throwing some shade in Superman's way about like, well, hey, like Superman had gone on to tell me that he finds all of our women in Barovia very attractive, and like I'm sure he's probably going on and setting up a harem. Ha 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 ha. So the leader of Barovia, after this meeting is over, is to make his way to his office to then open up this secret hatch to make his way through this portal to meet up with Lex to realize that they're kind of having a victory lap here. They're winning here. They're in uh, a good standings. So going on and having also the leader of Barovia asking like Lex, like, well, hey, like, was that message, was it fake? And Lex is like, well, it's not fake. And the guy's like, I knew it. So, uh, so we go on here to have now Soups making his way back to the Fortress of Solitude to come to find out that Thor is jabbing a screwdriver into his own head. And Clark is trying to ask for what happened, but it seems that Thor is kind of malfunctioning now, and eventually uh, he will go on and just start to um, just kind of just stop just working here. Like eventually, Superman will get him back to kind of working shape, but it won't be right now. So Superman starts to call out for Crypto, and there's going to be no answer. So Superman will thrust his way into Luthor Corp, trying to figure out where exactly Crypto is. And he confronts Lex about this. So this spot here honestly reminds me of Smallville. In the later seasons of Smallville, when like Lex starts to become more and more of a bad guy, and Clark ends up becoming a person who consistently barges into the Luthor mansion and is like, Lex, you did something bad, and Lex is just like, no, I didn't. Like, where? What's your evidence? Like, what? Like, huh? And so so Superman thrusts his way into uh Luthor Corp here, or Lex Corp, or whatever this is called. I'm not quite sure. And I think it's Luthor Corp. I think it's Luthor Corp. Because why would it be called Lex Corp? Just makes sense. But anyways, so Clark goes on is like, "You took my dog," and Lex is like, "What dog?" It's like, "You know the dog," and Lex is like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So let me pause here for a second. So Clark or Superman tries to confront Lex about this whole dog situation, and Lex won't give in to it. And like there's some good moments with Lex here that I actually really do like. But then there's also times where I'm just like, like I could take it or leave it at some points with Lex. I think a lot of people would go on and say that uh, Nicholas Holt doing Lex is probably one of the best Lex that they've ever seen. Like I don't know, I haven't really quite seen enough of Lex in this movie to just garner that sentiment. But like, is he is he really good? Yeah, he is. But like, I've probably seen Rosenbaum really explode and do all kinds of things within seasons of Smallville. So yeah, like I can't go on and say uh, that this is the best iteration of Lex that we've seen, just because I haven't quite seen enough of him in this film. But anyways, we come to find out that someone is live streaming what's going on at Luther Corp, and so the Clevis show is going on and talking about this on their talk show, and Clevis then turns to, of course, a certain superhero or anti-hero character, which of course is Peacemaker. And then so Peacemaker goes on and just starts doing all this dialogue about just kind of knocking down Superman. And I'm like, so I guess that's probably why we have characters from this movie also in the Peacemaker show, because like we want to tie everything together here, and like it's a nice universe thing. Uh, that would be kind of really cool to see how it all interconnects and commingles in the future. Because we have certain anime or animated voices that kind of lend their live action appearance in this movie, um, and that's kind of cool. So we're really starting to see everything just start to kind of commingle here in the DC world of things, and I'm all happy about that. But anyways, so here's a goofy thing. So there's obviously a dimensional imp that I would have liked to have thought that there was some kind of comic book connection to that entity, but probably not. Uh, and it seems that the Justice Gang is taking care of that. We kind of see these flashes of green light and red light and a bunch of just things that are to say that the the Justice Gang are taking care of this. I almost say Justice Society because in my brain, I'm not thinking that it's really the Justice League. I want to think that it's some other Justice Gang or kind of other name. Because in my mind, like when I look at Guy Gardner, I've never really seen him as actually being a part of the actual legit Justice League. Like it always seemed to have it be to where it's always just kind of this weird title that they end up kind of placing him in. Uh, but anyways, Clark or I want to figure out a quicker way to instead of saying Superman all the time. Superman uh, makes his way back to Lois, and Lois is like, "Oh, you're not going to go on. You're not going to help them out. Like, do you think they need your help?" And Clark is like, "Oh no no no! Like, they're facing off against this dimensional imp, and I asked them, and that they can handle this, so it's okay." So Lois ends up talking to Clark, asking about, well, hey, like, are you okay? And Clark is like, well, Lex took my dog, and And Lois is like, "You have a dog?" And like I'm hugely paraphrasing through this whole thing. Like I don't remember the whole thing word for word, but Superman ends up telling uh, Lois here, it's like, well, it's kind of a foster situation. Because come to find out, we'll realize that that the person who actually does have the dog is actually his cousin, uh, who is actually to be Supergirl. So she makes a cameo by the end of this film, and I was like, cool, like we get a drunk Supergirl. That was stupid. Uh, so in other words, like the way that we introduce this character is to just make me look at Supergirl. I'm like, ah, well, she's here. Why should I give a like? She's not gonna have anything to do with this film. And then also, like, I guess you have to have a different kind of Supergirl in this movie because looking at the other Supergirl in the other Flash movie, two different kinds of Supergirl. You know what kind of sucks? I'm like, you know what? Like, that Supergirl actually was not that bad. But that, of course, was tied into the whole Man of Steel movie, so we can't just go on and use the same actress now, could we? No. We have to go back to the same old blonde Supergirl. I'm like, that noise. Like, come on. Like, we could have gone on to really change the way a Supergirl looked for frickin' once, but no, like we have back to the same old blonde traditional comic book approach to Supergirl. Whatever. Why couldn't Supergirl be green? Or blue or purple or something? Wildly different than Clark. Anyways, moving on. So Lois ends up giving Superman some cocoa as it seems that Clark has to come to the realization that he needs to turn himself in, that it's the only way that he'll be able to get his dog back, technically, or he'll be in the same situation with the dog. And again, like, I like where like Superman's head is consistently at through this film. Like he really goes on and he really cares about stuff like a dog and wanting to make sure that this dog is okay. And I'm just like, man, this is kind of like quite a bit of this movie is kind of corny, but it's just kind of really interesting, like to just have this character be this way because it's so different than anything that I've seen from Superman in the past. Because I guess like Superman, like they tried to have him be like in Man of Steel, where he's kind of more dark and brooding and like to try to have him be more similar to Batman in some ways. Uh, but so after going on and having this bit of dialogue between one another, uh, also Lois, this is the point where she turns to Clark and say how they're just kind of polar opposites, how she goes on and she questions everything and Superman trusts everything, and also Clark ends up dropping the "I love you" to Lois, and states that she should have had uh, heard him say this a long time ago, but he's saying it now. So Clark goes on to uh, get himself arrested, and like these guys are really taking the mileage of this whole ordeal. They're like, heck yeah, we're gonna like drop him on the ground and throw the cuffs on him. And Superman's like, dude, like, I'm willing to give myself up. and you want to go on and just kind of like make a whole scene out of this. And so uh so Flag Senior is like, well, hey, like you got to come with me, because we're gonna go on and we're gonna bring you to our camp. So you're gonna see what Power Watch is all about, kind of thing. So Clark makes his way into this pocket dimension, and as he makes his way to speaking with Lex here, they end up getting uh, to the point of having us see Metamorpho here and understand what Metamorpho is about, because Lex had gone on to talk to some of the military people before, and they had talked about how uh, Superman's weakness is kryptonite, and how also kryptonite seems to be very rare on this Earth planet. And Lex is like, well, hey, I have a solution for that. Come to find out, the solution is Metamorpho. That Metamorpho, like, he is this element man, and he can go on and be able to create kryptonite from himself. I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But again, you're using Metamorpho in just the crappiest way. But come to find out, the reasoning for Metamorpho being forced to work alongside Lex here, and not be in the Outsiders team or wherever the heck else that normally Metamorpho would actually be in, as he's to go on and be a hero. But it seems that there's a possibility that Metamorpho will actually be enrolled in the Justice Gang. So I'm like, okay, so are they gonna make him like a Justice League member? Like, are they really going to go on and call this the Justice League and then have Metamorpho be a Justice League member? That would be freaking sweet. As well as also any number of these people. Like, if they actually legit call this Justice League or Justice Society or something, I'm like, oh my god, like, Metamorpho is in the Justice League. Wow, this seems to be rarefied air. Because usually Metamorpho is in kind of like the B or C or D groups, and like, I think Metamorpho actually does deserve to get just kind of higher up there as far as actually being enrolled in these kind of bigger groups, because he freaking deserves it. I feel for how he's kind of been shunned or whatever. Anyways, moving on. So uh Lex is to go on and talk to Superman here, Soups, and divulge that Lex had gone on to rent out uh, this pocket dimension to prison away a number of people who want certain people to kind of go away from a number of different places all across the world, as well as also uh, Lex is to personally go on to have certain ex girlfriends also to be uh, chained up or caged up within these cells. And Superman then turns to Lex and realizes, like, well, hey, there has to be some reason why you're going on and divulging this bit of information that can go on and kind of put you in a bad light, because Superman is never going to go on and see the light of day and never escape this prison cell. He's going to be here permanently. And Lex turns to Clark, or turns to Superman, and says, like, well, yeah, I definitely would like to have gone on and killed you right here and now, but like, it seems that the government just kind of wants you for further questioning, so I have to keep you alive. So But while that's going on, we have Metamorpho that turns his hand into kryptonite. So both Jimmy and both Lois are trying to figure out what Lex could be up to, and up to with Superman. So Lex, it seems, had gone on uh, to be funding uh, Berlovia's uh, Baravia's uh, like arms race going on, and not only like giving them free weapons uh, to realize that Lex could eventually be called a traitor via this country and what have you. But also, Jimmy will also have a source that tells us exactly where Superman is. And eventually, Lois ends up asking Jimmy, it's like, well, who is your source? And Jimmy's like, well, I can't tell you that, but this source is really, really good. So at some point, after Lois is to be like, okay, all right, like I guess like it's great that you have this source, but so Jimmy then goes on to look at his text messages and sees the text "want to meet up," and Jimmy's like, "Ooh, I don't know if I want to do that." And in my mind, I'm like, "Who could this source be?" Like, I'm thinking that this is some weird, like, overpowered character that we're gonna be like, "Oh my god, spoiler! Oh, like, oh my god, this is gonna be amazing superhero that has all the knowledge of this and that." And I'm gonna be like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be wild." Wouldn't it have been cool if it was Batman and Batman knew everything about everything? No, it wouldn't be Batman. It wouldn't. It would not be that character. Like, I was thinking it would be some overpowered character that has all the knowledge about DC, uh, or just has this. Maybe it's Doctor Fate. Maybe it's a Spectre. I would hope. But anyways, so Jimmy agrees to wanting to meet who this person is, and or maybe we would have thought it would be, and his name is John Cena. Peacemaker. No, uh, he was in this movie. No, not so much. So we come to find that Lex is keeping Crypto, and he wants to study him. So Crypto, it seems, is in this kind of simulation thing, and he's chasing all these squirrels, and so Lex is doing that whole kind of cat and mouse thing to find out everything he can about this dog, and then he's going to take him out after that. And so here is now where we go on to, I think, do uh, I think this is the roulette game part of the movie. Hmm, maybe I got a little ahead of myself. Yeah, I probably got really ahead of myself here. Yeah, I got really ahead of myself because this is, I think, the point where Superman turns to Lex and is like, "Well, hey, you would never divulge this information if you would not be willing to let me out of here. And Lex is like, oh yeah, like I would have killed you right here and then, but like it seems that I have to hold you for questioning. So here's where Jimmy makes his way to Eve, and Eve is to, of course, be Lex's current girlfriend. So Eve is talking to Jimmy, and she is obsessed with this guy, Jimmy, because she wants to just kind of get out of the relationship with Lex because she knows how toxic it is, because she's always with him and she's taking selfies, and there's a reason for that. We'll come to find out that this girl, it seems like she's dumb, but then we'll realize no, she's actually really smart. And she's taking these selfies because she's going to try to use these photos to then turn around and use this as evidence to find to help both Lois and both Jimmy find out that Lex is a traitor. So Eve is talking to Jimmy and is saying it's like, well, hey, like I'll leave Lex if it means that you and I can date one another. And Jimmy wants nothing to do with this girl. He hates her, and but he needs this girl for his story, so he kind of agrees to whatever he agrees to. And by the end of the movie, like the two of them embrace, and Jimmy, it seems, is like, okay, I think I'll be fine with this girl. But I think we're in if Superman just does a Superman 2 or whatever the sequel of this ends up being, we're probably gonna find out that Jimmy dumped this girl. She's never gonna come back in this movie, and if she does come back and she is with Jimmy, I will be shocked. But then also, I would probably hazard to guess that maybe Jimmy is probably going to get like some spin-off or some kind of something where we're going to see him in other things. We're probably going to end up seeing Jimmy maybe in the Peacemaker show or something somewhere down the road. Or I'm assuming probably there's going to be a number of characters that probably come from this thing to eventually get their own series. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe not Guy Gardner, because Guy Gardner, Nathan Fillion is already doing The Rookie. But maybe Hawk Girl will probably get her own show, or maybe Mr. Terrific will probably get his own show. There seems to be quite a reasoning for having Mr. Terrific have so much time in this movie that he does, that they're probably gonna build to a show. So again, Jimmy agrees to Eve here, and so we now go back to having Metamorpho not wanting to talk to Superman here, as Superman turns to Metamorpho and is like, well, hey, is that over there? Is that your son? And Metamorpho is like, shut up, don't talk to me. And consistently, Superman is trying to reason with Metamorpho, trying to figure out a way for him to kind of work on his side. And Metamorpho wants nothing of it, getting ever so close to Superman with the kryptonite and making Superman ever so much more so weaker. So now at the Hall of Justice, we have Lois Lane that makes her way to talk to Terrific Guy and Hawk Girl, trying to convince them that they should help her try and free Superman. So here's where Guy breaks it to Lois. It's like, well, hey, you do know that Superman is actually Clark Kent, right? You know that he has hypno glasses, right? And Lois is to try to not to admit to Guy Gardner that she knows who Superman actually is. And Guy is to try to not to admit right away who that he knows who Superman is, but then he says it's like, well, hey, yeah, Superman is Clark Kent, and then she's like, God, you guys are like, how is it that Superman trusts you? So Lois tries to talk to Guy and tries to convince him to help her out. And Terrific goes on to tell both Guy and Lois that he had put nanites in Superman here, which is a really good move. And when coming to find that Superman all of a sudden has lost his tracking at a certain location, that just kind of seems very unusual. That seems kind of weird. And that he must be really in some kind of pocket universe. And Lois is turning to Terrific. It's like, oh, you read my articles, uh, and also like you put nanites in Superman, and Terrific is to say to Lois is like, well, yeah, I do that to everybody. So here's where Lois desperately turns to Guy and the team here, like, well, hey, we need to save him. We need to save Superman. And Guy is going on to say that, like, if they go on and they do this, like, this will go on and quite possibly do what Superman had gone on and done in the early parts of this film, which is to be interfering in uh the Balovia invasion, uh and that also that Green Lanterns like should not go on and hassle in those kind of affairs. So in that Green Lanterns don't get involved in politics. So, but it is kind of interesting how Green Lantern is to talk about a vow here, and in all honesty, like his vow is kind of whatever he says it is. So, anyways, Lois tries to convince uh, these people to work with her, and eventually, the more and more she realizes that she can't sway any of them, she leaves, and finally, Terrific is to kind of walk out and be like, "Hey, like I'll come with you. Like we'll go on and we'll see if I can if we can kind of rescue Superman here." So Superman goes on, or Superman, uh, Mr. Terrific and Lois makes their way to this garage, and this is a bit of kind of comedy here. This is kind of like in Captain Marvel, how they're back in the 90s and they have this like weird dial up where it takes forever for the computer to just kind of work here. Same kind of joke here. Terrific ends up having this garage door open and it takes for frickin' ever. And funny enough, Lois turns to Terrific. It's like, wait a minute, you have a flying saucer in this garage, but it takes you like forever to have this door open. And so Terrific turns to Lois like, well, I haven't got that worked out yet. So they make their way into this spacecraft, and eventually we'll come to find that Lois ends up just going into this spacecraft and just easily being able to use this T craft herself. And I was just like, how is it that Lois can easily just man this thing, as well as also just like she just kind of at some point just starts to use it through the rest of the film. Okay, like um I guess Mr. Terrific doesn't really need uh this ship now, does he? Or we're probably gonna maybe see in sequels that Lois is just gonna just still have this ride. Uh but back with Superman. Here is where we go on to get this whole Russian roulette situation where the leader of Barovia is to be there. And so Lex is to uh, be having a gun to a man that had tried to help Superman early on in the movie. So Lex is holding a gun to this guy, and so Lex ends up asking Superman who he was working with on Earth, and the guy who is having a gun to his head is like, "Hey, tell them nothing." Uh, and so Lex fires the gun, and no bullets come out of it. So he's like, all right, well, like you got lucky on that. So Lex ends up asking Superman here, who raised him as a child. And so we come to find at this marker that it seems that the person who Lex had kind of been holding a gun to had died. So realizing that there's not much of any questions that Lex could have that Superman would be so interested in answering, because there's no person to, because the guy who is now dead, uh, yeah. So Lex is say it's like, well, hey, I guess I'll need to come back, and I'll need to bring someone else here to kind of hold over you, so I can ask you more questions. And maybe it'll end up being that guy who consistently interviews you. Yeah, that Clark Kent guy. Or maybe someone else that you really do care about. So, Metamorpho is to be very upset for the fact that that guy had gotten killed and had gotten shot. So, now we go back to both Lois and Mr. Terrific making their way to this Bolovian camp or whatever. And Terrific is to go on and use his T spheres and find out exactly where Superman had headed last to. And all of a sudden, all these raptors are going on to try and stop Terrific from getting uh, to figure out where Superman is. And so Terrific just starts to go off. He ends up using his T spears and his abilities as his this tech genius to start to take out all these raptors. And there's a lot of these raptors, as well as also these other rando people that Terrific just starts to just crush through like nothing, as well as also in the meantime having this spear that surrounds Lois here and is protecting her. And all the while, she's realizing the bodies that are piling up from Terrific just decking all these guys, and she's like, "Holy sh!" So this one guy is like an army. It's crazy. So again, back to uh, both Terrific and Lois needing to find out where Superman had gone to. So once they find out this dimensional thing, Terrific is to look at this and like, man, this is the stupidest thing. Like, this is so risky to have this pocket dimension portal open up. And but yeah, like this is specifically something that Lex would definitely go on and do, so it makes all the sense in the world for Lex to do something like this, regardless of how risky it really is. So so Terrific goes on and is hacking through Lex's system, and he really wanted to go in and do this just to tick off Guy Gardner, or Green Lantern in this case. So Metamorpho is talking uh, to Superman here, and is to go on and state how that guy had just died. And here is where finally it seems that Superman has now a possibility of reasoning to Metamorpho to like, hey, like I can help you with your son, like we can get out of here, or you're gonna get stuck here forever. Like, what's the like? Could I kind of jostle you into probably helping me get out of here? So Metamorpho realizes that Superman could be powerful enough to get them out of there. So Metamorpho takes away the kryptonite, but then Metamorpho still looks at Superman and realizes how disgusting he looks or gross he looks. And Clark is like, well, yeah, because there's no sunlight coming from any part of this dimension. And so Metamorpho tries to figure out how he can come up with some kind of sun so that way it can heal Superman temporarily here. So Metamorpho comes up with an element of the sun and has Superman start to just kind of power up here. So Clark and Lois figure out how to get to the right uh, dimension to get to Superman. And Lois ends up giving a jab to Terrific about his circles. He's like, they're called T-spheres. So, and consistently we have these one-liners of Terrific, like, unbelievable. So, Terrific states to Lois that the two of them cannot go on, and they can't get to any part of this puck dimension, so they have to use these T spears to go on and find Superman here. So while that's going on, Superman bursts through his cell and then goes to free Joey here, which is of course be Metamorpho's baby. And then both Superman and Joey and Metamorpho reunite here. So Metamorpho tells Superman that he needs to hold on to the baby because when Metamorpho is to kind of change the way he is, that he can't hold on to the baby. So Superman's like, okay, I'll keep hold of the baby and we'll get that out of here. So here is where Crypto is to end up getting free here. And so Metamorpho and Superman are trying to escape this dimension, and they're trying to figure out where the heck to go. And what ends up happening here is Superman ends up getting sucked into this black hole, all while also having to fend him off these raptor characters that are trying to get both Metamorpho and Superman back in their cells. So as Superman almost gets dragged into this black hole trying to protect Joey, the baby, the alien baby, or the element baby, uh, we would also uh like have Superman that is crying out for Crypto to try and help him like try to get them out of this black hole, but it seems that almost Crypto is going to get dragged in this thing also. So Metamorpho is to have these kind of squid-like tethers, and he is to have this kind of rocket strapped to him also. And Metamorpho figures out how to go on and get them kind of free from this black hole. So finally, Terrific ends up figuring out where Superman is, and so Terrific goes on and tells Lois about how like Superman and a dog and a and a weird squid thing and this and that, like is really weird and really kind of funny. It was a really funny joke. So Superman notices the T sphere and is like, okay, we can get out of here now. So Crypto is to be the first one to spot Terrific and Lois, and so uh, Crypto goes through the hole, and then the rest of the gang is to follow here. So uh, we have Metamorpho that thanks Superman and thanks him for saving his baby, and uh, Terrific goes on and examines Superman here, and it seems that Superman is having kryptonite poisoning, and so Superman needs to go on and needs to kind of relax for a day or two. So the only way that it seems that logically Superman can go on and do that is if he makes his way to the Kent farm. So uh, so Terrific is the state that he needs to go on and stay at this facility uh, because he needs to protect this portal. And also, uh, Lois needs to go off to go to the Kent farm, and he needs to have her take the tea craft with her, and like tells her that it's kind of easy to man and what have you. So as Clark and Lois makes their way to the tea craft, we see Metamorpho and his baby just kind of just walking off like, okay, see you guys later, and he kind of just leaves. So Lois tries to man this plane craft that she's never manned before, and Crypto decides that he's gonna just jump right on her lap. And Lois is like, Crypto, could you move here? Like, I gotta man this thing. And the dog is like, nope, like I'm just gonna be right here. Yeah. And so Lois is like, okay, well, I'm just gonna have to figure out how to just man this thing with this dog in front of me. It's gonna be great. So Lex is now very upset with anger here, and he's lashing out at people, seeing that Eve is taking another selfie photo, and he is just so upset at her at this point that he's telling her to leave, and uh he's chucking a thing at her, forcing her to be scared, and finally calling Jimmy to say, like, I'm done with Lex. I'm going to leave him. Like, I'm going to get every bit of dirt that I have on him. I'm going to send all of this to you. And Jimmy's like, oh, okay, all right, cool. Like, as long as Eve is willing to let Jimmy be with, or be, have her be with him for a weekend. And Jimmy's like, really, a weekend? And Eve is like, really? Come on. So, uh, and so Eve ends up telling Jimmy this, and Ultraman, because of course his super hearing, overhears this and is like, uh-huh, what? So Ultraman ends up relaying this to Lex, and so the two of them go on and they grab Eve and they pull her out of this room. And so Eve sends Jimmy this huge amount of selfies, and Jimmy looks through all these selfies and is like, come on, Eve, like, you didn't send me anything of real dirt on Lex, but come to find out she did. Like, they just had to look closer at all these pictures to realize that, yeah, Eve was smart here. Eve had a bunch of dirt on Lex. So, Lois and Superman make their way to the Kent farm, and Lois and the Kent parents kind of do their introductions here, and so Soups makes his way to his bed, and it seems like he's very much ill here, and uh, so Lois is going on and talking to Jimmy here, and and Jimmy ends up talking about how Eve is obsessed with him, and Lois is asking Jimmy, it's like, well, how do you do that? Like, how do you do that? So, uh, here is where I believe, where they start to go on and they start to figure out through these selfies the evidence that Eve has. And Lois tells Jimmy how actually Eve is a genius. So, now back with Lex, and the plan here uh is that this dimension, or this portal is to go on and just kind of be dangerous at this point. And let me pause here for a second. So Lex's plan is to try to figure out a way to lure Superman back out onto the field, and so that way they can duke it out again. Because since Lex is to realize that he is to have orders to be able to kill Superman, then he just needs to redraw Superman out. So what happens here is Lex tries to overload the the portal system, and Terrific finds out about it, and he ends up telling the woman, it's like, well, yeah, this is why you don't have a hot dimension. So Terrific is to try to figure out how to fix this portal problem, as it seems that this door is going to cause this rift to where the whole planet is going to break in half. So Lex looks at the fact that he's like, well, hey, I know where Superman is going to head next. And so Clark is to wake up back at the farm and is to go and have a bit of dialogue between him and his father, kind of reminiscing about old times, and eventually having Jonathan tell Clark how proud he is of him. And so Clark ends up telling his father about that message, about how he never got the second half of it until now. And Jonathan ends up going on and states about how uh, Clark always had a choice, that like through his actions and this and that, through uh, um, through everything that Clark had decided to do, that is of course to be why Jonathan is to go on and be so proud of him, about how he decided to just be this good guy after all, and he could have gone on and just been a king and destroy this world and whatever, but he decided not to. He decided to just be part of it. So uh, Martha is to go on and let Clark know that there's something on the television that Clark should check out. So come to find out that there's a war going on between Barovia, and also the Jarhanpurian, Jarhaparian, whoever the other uh, like bit of war refugees or whatever this to battle is going up against. The weird place that no one can really pronounce. And so everybody's going on and watching this war going on, and like Metamorpho is watching, Guy is watching, uh, Hawk Girl is watching this on the television. The Jaharvians, whatever the refugees of which that I had stated are going on, and they're hoping that Superman can help them out in this crisis. They're going on to call out for Superman. They're having a sign that has a Superman logo, and they're hoping that Superman will help them in this case, which it doesn't really seem like he's going to go on and actually be able to do that, that he's just going to rely on the Justice Gang. Because Superman has a lot of other stuff going on, and Terrific will go on to bring one of his T spheres to talk to Clark here. telling him that he needs to make his way to Metropolis, and Clark will tell Terrific, it's like, well, hey, like I think there's another crisis going on elsewhere with that war that's going to be breaking out, and Terrific's like, no, 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 like I need you at Metropolis because of this rift that's tearing apart through the city. So Martha turns to Clark and states to him, it's like, well, hey, yeah, uh, like I'll go on, I'll get your boots, like I'll get your stuff ready. So we find out that Metropolis is getting evacuated. Everybody is scrambling to get out of there, as well as Lois and Jimmy are trying to tell Perry about what they had found out through Eve. They're having this huge whiteboard kind of segment here where they're going on and revealing to Perry about just Lex being a traitor here and all the evidence that they have stacked up against him and all these selfies and all of these things stating that Lex had gone on and given free weapons to the Borovias. So they realize that they all have to start evacuating here, but Perry just wants to hear this story out and like, you know what, this story sounds pretty solid. Uh, like let's get the heck out of here. And like Perry ends up telling Lois, is like, well, hey, you still have that spacecraft, right? The T craft, right? Yeah. So he's like, all right, everybody who can go on and get into this craft, let's get in there and let's leave. So that way they can get into this spacecraft and Lois could tell them what the story is. Jimmy can type the story and then Perry can kind of and put eyeballs on it and be like, yeah, this sounds like a good enough story. Let's print it. As they try to evacuate the metropolis. So Terrific is starting to see this rift is to cause so much chaos that buildings are start to break in half, and building and skyscrapers are to just smash one over the other, an almost domino effect. So Sydney is looking on at this carnage and is starting to realize that they need to get the heck out of this building. They need to evacuate also. And Lex is like, like we got this solved. And Sydney's like, no, 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 we need to get out of here. We need to evacuate. And come to find out, LexCorp can go on and become this ship that can just kind of separate from this building. And then Sydney's like, oh, all right, well, okay, like, I guess we've solved that problem. So everybody is going on and evacuating here. And we come to find that one of the buildings is to fall on this bridge, which is to almost crush this person. And Superman flies in and is to lift the building up to where it doesn't crash on this one person. So this one person ends up driving away, looking back at Superman, and then just continues to drive. So I think this is where Terrific kind of turns to Superman here. It's like, well, hey, what took you so long? And Superman said that he couldn't allow Crypto to stay at uh, the Kent farm anymore because uh, it was killing his parents' cows or something like that. So probably for how much he was like freaking bashing into everything because that's what Crypto just loves to do. So as Terrific and Superman are kind of doing this bit of dialogue here, kind of this joke and yucks, all of a sudden, uh, we then have Ultraman and uh, Engineer thrust their way into attacking both Terrific and Soups here. Here's where we get the stadium scene that we kind of have seen in trailers. And so they thrust their way into the stadium and they're battling it out. So Lex is going on and giving commands of what Ultraman should do here, the fighting style here. And once Superman is to go on and get tackled by Ultraman, but then he ends up getting the finally a kind of an attack that kind of wins over against Ultraman. Superman then turns his attention on Engineer as Engineer starts to have her weapons in her hand start to attack Superman. Superman uses his laser vision to try and fight off against uh, the Engineer. Both Ultraman and the Engineer kind of double team Superman here, and try and as much as possible to try and attack him here as uh, as eventually the plan is to have these nanites grab uh, Superman's face and have them start to go through into his body to stop him from breathing, which is to have a way to figure out how to beat Superman. So while this is going on, we also have Lex who's getting a call from the Barovia leader, and so the leader is going on and telling these guys like, well, hey, let's start this war. So Superman now can no longer see. Like he's having this whole entire face just filled with these nanites, and they're very baffled and very confused what the heck that Superman is doing here. So what Superman plans to do is just fly up because he can't really see, so he's just flying up here, and he's hoping that the friction of these nanites just kind of being forced to just kind of fly off of his face can get him to see more. So both Engineer and Ultraman try to chase after Superman to stop him from doing this. So they're grabbing on to Superman, and further we see that the Engineer is using her nanites to consistently swarm onto Superman to the point to where these nanites are forcing both Ultraman and both Engineer to stick all over Superman to where when Superman goes from the Earth's atmosphere to then back down into the Earth, that we start to see that Superman is diving as much as he can to take out both of these characters, and then Lex is to try to get the Engineer to not go on and crash the way she does because she's not as protected as Ultraman is. There's nothing she can do, and the Engineer ends up getting knocked unconscious. But it seems that Ultraman is completely fine. So underground, as Superman has kind of thrusted himself underground, Lex, for Lex, Superman has the ability to rip out these nanites from out of his body. And then he goes toe to toe with Ultraman, as Ultraman is now take off his mask and reveal that this is the clone of Superman. And Lex ends up telling Superman that, yeah, I had gotten a strand of hair from one of your battles. I only had to go on and just find one strand of hair to clone you. So, telling, of course, Superman how he had gone on to make a clone of Superman. So, and this is basically the Superman 4 thing. Uh, so Ultraman tries to face off against Superman here and starts to beat the crap out of him. And Lex states to Superman here how it's like, well, yeah, it's Brain against Brawn, and Brain is gonna beat Brawn. And then later on, when Superman is gonna get the better of Lex, he goes on and says Brain over Brawn. So Lex and or Lex, I keep saying Lex. Superman and Ultraman are battling it out here. Uh, and they're fighting it out right at this rift. We have this war that is going on, and this one child is desperately calling out for Superman, hoping that he will be there. And Superman goes on to uh, tell Lex that what he's trying to do in Balovia is not going to work because he has friends. And like, what does that mean by that? So this kid is crying out for Superman, and all of a sudden, Guy Gardner arrives to protect the kid. And so Guy is telling the kid, it's like, well, hey, like, you're not gonna have Superman, but you're gonna have us here, and we're gonna protect you. So here is where Guy, Hawk, and Terrific go through, and Guy uses all of his constructs to kind of deliver middle fingers and all these massive hands and thrusts all these tanks away, and just starts to just face off against the opposition here. So we now have Hawkgirl that makes her way to the Bolovian leader and grabs him and thrusts him out of this building and is now flying with him. And here's where Hawkgirl has her like, well, I don't have to save you either moment. Where Hawkgirl is talking to this Bolivian leader, and they figured out that the Bolivian leader had gone on and worked alongside uh, Lex and is a traitor, and they figured all this out because, of course, they probably read Lois's article and then it started to act. So this Bolivian leader is turned to Hawkgirl. It's like, well, hey, like you're not going to kill me, you're not going to drop me because like you're like Superman, you're a good guy, and Hawkgirl turns to this leader and says like, "Well, I'm not like Superman." And then so she drops him and lets him die. It's like, "Yeah." So, uh oh, I guess maybe the article had just gotten to print, so maybe they didn't read the article, but they knew what was what. Maybe because Terrific had let the guys know about this rift that is going on. Maybe that's what kind of got them to act finally. Uh, but hey, the showdown between both Ultraman and Superman continues. So, so both Ultraman and both Clark keep duking it out here. So, uh, Heat Vision is getting involved, and so So here is where again Clark, because he can't quite beat his mirror matched version of himself, he then realizes that he can go on and kind of add to the odds by bringing in Crypto. Come to find out, Crypto had bashed his way through some pet store and is now figuring out that he should go on and try to help out Superman here. So Clark has noticed around him that there is a number of cameras that are going on and helping Ultraman with this feed to figure out how to beat Superman here. So he's like, aha. So Clark or Superman turns to Crypto and says, like, hey, destroy the toys. Destroy the. So Crypto starts to destroy all the cameras, and Lex is to lose all the feeds. So there's nothing that they can go on and tell Superman what, or Ultraman what to do against Superman here. So now Superman goes on to uh, take out Ultraman and then take out a bunch of the Raptors, and by the time that Superman is to just kind of be like doing and doing all these things, Terrific turns to Superman. It's like, well, hey man, like, don't you have something more important to do? And Superman turns to Terrific. It's like, well, hey, like, I'm doing important stuff. So, like, saving the world. So, Lois is to notice that there is a part of the city where this rift is to start to separate, and there's a bunch of people there. So Sydney talks to Lex about like, well, hey, like maybe we should try to figure out a way to just stop this from happening because a lot of people are gonna die. And Lex turns to Sydney. It's like, well, let them die. So Lex at this point is just willing to just kind of sacrifice everybody in the means of like, well, hey, like we're gonna get our goal with getting Superman, so who cares about anybody else? So all of a sudden, after this kind of moment here, Lex to kind of realize something, and it gets him to just kind of run off, realizing that he should probably get the heck out of Dodge. So this then leads Superman to thrust his way into Lex, having him smash against this desk, and we have Mr. Terrific making his way into Lex's kind of just floating ship here, and Terrific is going to try to stop this portal from continuing to rift and to continue to separate. So people are wanting to go on and tell Terrific what exactly to do, and Terrific's like, dude, I'm Mr. Terrific, I know what I'm doing, and he fixed the problem. So Lex ends up telling uh, Superman that he's an alien, that he's a piece of alien, and here is where, in all honesty, I feel that Superman kind of does the Captain America "You need to do better, Senator" kind of speech, where like Superman is gonna defeat Lex by giving him a speech, like Captain America does in his shows and his movies. So Superman mentions to Lex about how he's human. Superman is human like Lex is, Superman is to go on and say that he uh, is to be scared, and that he loves, and that he's as much as human as anyone else is, and that he puts one foot in front of the other every day, and he tries every day to make the best choices that he can possibly make, and that he does screw up from time to time, and that of course is his greatest strength, and that he is to go on and be human is his greatest strength. Um, so Lex is to kind of just condescendingly tell, like, of course, Superman is like, well, that's beautiful, all right, poetic and what have you. Uh, so Lex is to tell Clark here that he is the authority to kill Superman, but it doesn't really seem that Lex is to go on and so easily have any kryptonite kind of available on him. So instead of Clark going on and lifting a finger to Lex, he instead whistles, and Crypto is to show up and is to tackle Lex to the ground and starts bashing him like Hulk did with Loki in the Avengers film. So Lex ends up getting thrusted around, and we have Lex that is grabbing on his arm, and Lex is to find out on the news that there is to be the news that is going on and blasting the fact that Lex Luthor is a traitor. So now everybody on the news is all covering this, and Lex is to go on and eventually turn to Superman and realize that he is lost here. So the next thing we see is the refugees that are all going on and celebrating with Metamorpho and Guy, Hawk, and that's it here. And because Terrific is with Superman, so it's like, all right, okay. So Metamorpho had helped out this group by slapping this huge, massive metal hammer down on one of the tanks. So he, I guess, goes on to accomplish something in this movie. So Hawk and Guy are realizing now, since, like, well, hey, Metamorpho, it seems like you have some substantial powers here. Like, and Guy is like, well, hey, I don't think we're gonna go on and have him join the gang and this Justice Gang. And Metamorpho says, hey, Justice Gang, that sounds like a cool name. And Guy is like, well, maybe we will have him come into this team after all. So General Mori turns to Flag Senior and says, like, well, yeah, I guess like these meta humans, like, I guess that they end up making all the rules now. Hey, Fury Senior. So we come to find out all the prisoners Lex had in his pocket dimension had all gotten free, and they all make their way to hug their families, and so Jimmy ends up finding Eve, and the two of them embrace. And here's where, like, we get a close shot of Jimmy. He's like, this is nice. So Lois ends up finding Superman, and so Superman ends up telling Lois, is like, well, hey, Lois, I'd like to have that interview now. And so the two of them make their way to a kind of secret place, and the two of them kiss. Perry ends up asking Jimmy how long have they been hooking up, and it's been like, well, quite a while now. So Gary and or I believe number four is opening up this newspaper that ends up saying Metropolis's true hero. So Superman makes his way back to the Fortress of Solitude, and he is talking to Four, and Four wants to now go on and wants to have a legitimate like name besides number four, and Superman turns to Four. It's like, well, hey, it seems like Four is actually a name, and Four is like, well, it's not Gary. So I guess Four is going to eventually, from here on out, be called Gary. So come to find out, there is finally a certain person that needs to give us a cameo here, and that is to be Supergirl. Supergirl, we find out, is to finally make her way back to the Forests of Solitude, and she is drunk because she had gone to a red planet, and I don't know how she had gotten there, because you would think that she would have lost all of her powers, but miraculously she didn't. So, Supergirl is to make her way back to the Fortress of Solitude drunk, and is asking where Crypto is. And immediately when Crypto is to make his way back to see Supergirl, he then grabs her, thrusts her on the ground, and so uh, Supergirl is to recollect her dog and is to go on and kind of condescendingly say to Superman, like, well, hey, like, thanks for watching my dog, you bit. And she leaves. So now, by the very tail end of this, we have Superman that makes his way back onto this chair and is to embrace the sun, as we have all the robots that are surrounding him. And we have four that goes on to say, it's like, well, yeah, like he wants to go on and he wants to see the videos of his parents because he finds it soothing. And this time around, instead of having Superman see his Kryptonian family, he instead sees all the home videos uh, of the Kent family, and that's what kind of ends this film. And the end credit scenes are like nothing things, from what I found out from going through YouTube. To where I was like, okay, so it's not really worth anybody going on and watching the end credit scenes. So, like, if anybody could want to leave by the time the credits roll, there's nothing really to see there, except for some jokes, or not to set up anything. It doesn't show that there's going to be Brainiac, or there's going to be a Supergirl movie besides them already showing the Supergirl character. So with that said, I'm going to get the heck out of here, because I've already been talking for far too long for this entire day. So thank you guys for going on and listening to this. I was just recounting the film and I wasn't doing that well of it anyways. I apologize. But really, I've already been talking for a number of hours already today. I am so freaking tired and so exhausted. So I hope you go on and enjoy the other videos that I'd also put together for the last 2 days, and also the whole process of today. Ooh, I am so wiped. I am so wiped. So, thank you for going on and listening to this, and thank you for the view, hopefully. So, uh, thanks. I really do appreciate it. I'm so freaking tired. I'm so wiped. I'm gonna try to get out of here so I can just save whatever left of energy I left in my body. Uh, there are some interesting movies that I find interesting that I hope to review in the future. as well as also eventually giving out those comic book videos that I hope to do sometime soon, or maybe I might have them just kind of as cold storage. But like I really wanted to put those videos out sometime soon. But also, I realized that there's going to be a number of reviews that I can also need to do. There's Dexter Resurrection that seems to have gotten released lately that I'm tempted to just kind of do that show. There's a bunch of other just new releases that I'm kind of itching to try to do. There's Teen Titans, Young Justice, any number of animated movies and shows and things that I can go on and do at some point and talk about. So I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.